time for this session here today and for being here. And so my first question is going to be, could you please tell us a bit about yourself? And then after that, a bit about FNF Pakistan also.
Sure, yeah, thank you so much for having me. And for us at Friedrich Naumann Foundation Pakistan, it's always a pleasure to work with SDPI on entrepreneurship and economic policy development, which is like the main area of cooperation that we have together. Friedrich Naumann Foundation has been in Pakistan since 1986, working for a society where people can realize their project of life. So basically, we want to strengthen responsible and active citizenship and frameworks. So that means good governance and an efficient public administration that actually protects the space for people to realize their projects, whether it's an economic one, it's a private one, or maybe an academic one. So this is basically what we do. Myself, I've been here in Pakistan since 2019, so I just arrived before COVID. And I think I found that being in Pakistan during these challenging times was the right decision, also not to go back to Europe, because I felt like the whole situation and the way how Pakistan managed it was, at least for me as a resident here in Islamabad, the much more amenable way of spending this time in a safe way. Otherwise, I've been with FNF for a long time, since 1993. Shortly after my degree, I joined them and made my way up from being a desk officer now to being a country director. I've served in various capacities, among others as director of the International Academy for Leadership in Germany, where we organize international training courses for our partners globally. And before coming to Pakistan, I served as director of our Mexico office for 5.5 years. So yeah, I've seen a good part of the world and also served in various positions from the shop floor to being country director.
No, really, that's quite impressive, Ms. Lam, that you've been in this sector for about 30 years now. And you've made yourself up to the top. And of course, as a female, you must have faced a lot of challenges, while you were working and struggling to assume this leadership role. So what are those challenges, perhaps, if you could highlight them? And also, how did you overcome them and tackle them?
Well, I don't know whether I've successfully overcome all of them, but I think in general, I mean, female empowerment is a societal problem. I would never claim that it is a male problem only, or it's a female problem only. Sometimes when you have women empowerment programs, I experienced that when I was serving in Germany as a program manager in our domestic program. And there you already see FNF, for example, is an organization which mainly employs female staff. But then you have the question, what level do they serve? So as long as you're on the operative level, it was predominantly female. And as soon as you get to the more academic or the more leadership role, then suddenly all the men came in. And when I came to be a program director, suddenly it was only 30% females and 2/3 men. And when you come to be director of a unit, then suddenly I was the only female in the room. So there is like a certain ceiling in it. But just that experience that I had in the past, because female empowerment has been a buzzword also in Germany for quite a while. And Germany, to be honest, was not a trailblazer in Europe on women empowerment. The Scandinavian countries or the Netherlands have been much better than that. So I was then asked, please organize us a program for women. And I said, okay, so it's about women empowerment, and I'm going to talk to women only. So it's like the people who feel left out among themselves will discuss why they feel left out. I mean, for the mental well-being and for feeling supportive, that's good. But if you want to change structures, like people who are feeling that they are lagging behind, talking among themselves is not helpful. You need to engage the decision makers. So that means you need to have a dialogue with the decision makers to actually acknowledge the performance of women as well. And then I asked my superior, who was obviously a man, okay, so I'm supposed to organize a program on women empowerment for you. So what is it supposed to be a women program only? I do you a program on women if you do for me a program on men. And then he was just looking at me, because in a way, people thought that a program on women would only exclusively mean how do you align responsibilities within the family with being a working person, and not acknowledging that women, just as men, have so many multiple phases in their lives and different responsibilities. I mean, for every person, whether you are a high school student thinking about what career to take, or you're about to graduate and start your professional life, or then maybe you start your family, or you're a mid-career professional, or maybe you are a grandparent. I mean, you're in different phases of your life, and there are so many different identities that you have, and women are just as diverse as men are. And I mean, if you talk about promoting men, what do you think about? Cars, computers? I mean, I wouldn't be able to do such a seminar. And I think that's the issue, acknowledging women are just as diverse as anyone else. And women empowerment is a societal issue. I've also seen, that's my personal experience, that actually, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to move up and be a successful professional without the support of my superiors and colleagues. And obviously, as I've told you, most of my superiors were men. So I was able to convince them that I was performing well. And I can also say that my female colleagues were not always the most supportive ones. And actually, especially with, let's say, middle-aged or older women who have also the social roles very much entrenched in their feeling, they were always sometimes the hardest to convince that an aspiring female professional can also deliver as a leader. And sometimes, to be honest, when I had, let's say, in terms of age, a more mature but female colleague to work with, they gave me a tougher time than male colleagues.
No, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with you that it's not just a men's issue, it's a societal issue. And it's faced not just in the global south, but in the global north alike. Absolutely. So thank you very much for that. And moving on to the topic now, Ms. Lam, so you mentioned you've been in Pakistan since 2019. So what are your observations of the female entrepreneurship ecosystem in general? If you could just shed light on that.
Well, I think in general, people are very entrepreneurial, and they have to be. I mean, Pakistan has a very young population. The average age is 22, if I'm not correct. So all these people need some gainful employment. And unfortunately, there are not enough formal jobs where people can apply to. So what do? They need to earn a living. They need to support their families. So actually, everybody engages in something. Most of the time, it's in the informal sector, which is roughly about 70%. And I think these data haven't changed over the last 5 to 10 years. So it's a highly informal economy. And you find them as street vendors, as traders, as bazaris, or working as a carpenter, but also in the service sector, because the service sector is the sector that actually is the one that contributes most to Pakistan's GDP. So in that respect, I think the general mindset of not having a job and starting a business and earning your own money responsibly, that's very much a part of natural life in Pakistan, and everybody has at least one business. I mean, sometimes it doesn't even sell to just be engaged in one thing, and people start doing different things, 2 or 3 even in the informal sector. But I think that's an advantage in a way if you want to engage entrepreneurship. But we would also need to discuss, and this is again then a governance issue, why is it so difficult and also regarded as disadvantaged by very many people to actually join the formal sector. And then you actually get into governance issues, administrative hurdles, dealing with taxes and FBR obviously is a big issue. And also the way how the tax system works and where taxes are collected and where taxes are not collected. And I think that's like a big issue that we work on as DPI is working on, and what basically the public sector also needs to work on is lower the hurdles and also lower the loss of opportunity costs that an informal small business has in order to go formal. And let's say increase the advantages of being formal. Right now, I think for a lot of people, it's rather a disadvantage. And I would also say being informal does not necessarily mean being illegal. There are lots of people who just run a humble business, but they are non-filers. They just don't want to have the red tape that goes with having a formal business.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you on that. And keeping that in mind, how would you compare that with the entrepreneurship ecosystem of Germany itself?
Well, Germany has a highly formalized system, obviously, but also in Germany, being an entrepreneur and starting your business has a high level of administrative requirements. And this is also something that actually prevents a lot of people starting their own business. And in this respect, we're a bit different, or you could even say like the opposite of Pakistan, because being an entrepreneur is not in general a very attractive future option for a German young graduate. Most of them would actually look for well-paid employment, probably with a big company like Siemens or Bayer, because you would have your guaranteed holidays, you would have your salary. When you've done with your job, you have your free time. I mean, being an entrepreneur means a 24/7 job. You're always responsible for your money, for your employees, for your customers, and that's a different responsibility. So actually, in Germany, there are lots of initiatives now also to encourage young people to consider rather being an entrepreneur than seeking employment from a big company. This is like the safety net. And in Germany, we do have a lot of safety thinking in our society in general.
Right. So if you were to sort of pinpoint the top 3 sort of tips that the Pakistani female entrepreneurs could, sort of take away from the German ones, what would they be?
I think in general, for everybody who wants to start his own thing, you need to be passionate about the idea and the business that you would like to promote, because you would need to put in a lot of effort and a lot of sweat and anxiety. And if this is something that you don't feel yourself passionate about, I think you're not going to make it. The second thing is also, I mean, you're taking on a leadership role and you need to convince others, your customers, potential investors. You need to think about capital. So first of all, as a startup, you're starting your own venture. I mean, this is the same that happens everywhere. You will find it very hard to get formal investment from a bank. So naturally, the first money you get for your business will be your own savings. It will come from your family. It will come from friends, which you convince that you're, let's say, a good, credible person and that your idea sells. So you need to be also very sure of yourself. And then we also come to this issue about women empowerment, or being, let's say, not well accepted or not regarded as competent as maybe a male competitor. I think that to a certain degree holds true in both our societies. But the first thing is, if you are not yourself, sure about yourself that you can do it, how am I supposed to convince you that I can do the job if I'm sitting like right in front of you? Sorry, I do have that idea, but I'm not too sure. Maybe you give me that job and I can do it. I mean, you're not going to help me with that. So I need to be convinced of myself. If I'm sure of myself, then I can look eye to eye to someone else, and I can hope to convince the other person that I'm burning for what I'm doing and that I can do it. So that's the first thing. You cannot change other people. The only person you can really change and manage is yourself. So that's the first thing you need to do. The other interesting thing that you might not know about Germany, although you might know the big companies like Siemens and Bayer, and everybody wants to get a job with these big companies. Actually, the biggest job machine in Germany are small and medium-sized companies. Small and medium-sized, starting from 1 to maybe 1,000 owned businesses. That's the, let's say, definition of what an SME in Germany is. And these companies account for more than 99% of companies in Germany, and they employ 56% of the labor force. So in our countries, I can literally say SMEs and family-owned businesses are the backbone of German economy. And they are also more innovative than big companies like Bayer. They are concerned about keeping their market share and also, let's say, keeping their business safe. The small companies, they are much more innovative. They go for niche markets. And although you sometimes do not know their names, but they might be global world leaders in a specific niche product, and they are very successful in it. And they are like the innovative driving force in Germany. One thing you might not know, for example, during COVID, the company that I would say literally saved millions of lives is a German startup called BioNTech. So BioNTech is run by a couple, 2 doctors of Turkish origin who employ 100 researchers, and they were basically researching on cancer treatment. And then they started this innovative vaccine development, which they then did with Pfizer. But this is a company located in the vicinity of Cologne with 100 investigators. And this is a classic German SME, we would say. So that's BioNTech. And you see what kind of a driving force can come from them. Well, unfortunately, only 16% of German SMEs are women-led. So especially in the tech business, women also in Germany focus more on services or education, like the roles that sort of are traditionally more connected to women. But there are quite a lot of programs encouraging women as well to start a business. And according to the stats in 22, actually 46% of new startups were founded and started by women. And that's obviously great news, because the SMEs, the successful SMEs in the next 30 years will obviously be the startups that have been founded now. So if 46% of last year's startups were founded by women, I think that's really good news. And that means also that policies and encouragement can actually work. And there have been initiatives by chambers of commerce, but already starting in schools and companies, chambers of commerce, the government going into schools and especially encouraging girls also to consider being an entrepreneur and tapping into this human resource, because it's 50% of the population, and you would like to use all the talent that is available in your population, and you shouldn't leave out on 50% of your population.
No, definitely that is quite impressive, this jump from 15% to 46% that you've mentioned. And this also brings me to my next question that, of course, I think being able to improve yourself also requires you to learn from best practices. So in that regard, how would you say that the think tanks like SDPI and FNF and the development sector in Germany in general, how can we sort of create linkages between the women entrepreneurs of EU and Pakistan so that females from here can perhaps, learn from them and improve themselves?
I think role models are always very important for everybody. So the whole society needs to see there are charismatic leaders, there are people with creative ideas, and they can actually pull something off. And obviously, when you run a business, you need customers, you need profit. This is what the business is about. And I think in that respect, creating linkages is a huge issue. It's also like an opportunity for us to showcase these role models, support businesses in scaling up, getting professional exposure, and being like a platform where various stakeholders can actually connect. I think it's also important that these entrepreneurs talk to policymakers, they talk to administration. I've seen also in Germany very often that you have civil servants from the Ministry of Economics or from a municipality. In Germany, we have a very decentralized structure. So economic policy is basically a municipal issue in the domestic field. And there are lots of people who really want to market their municipality and want it to go to the businesses, but they don't know how, because they don't run businesses themselves. So you need to create platforms, and obviously people need to be able to listen, not only talk. This is unfortunately like a passion of lots of politicians everywhere, make speeches. But I think just as important as making speeches is active listening, seeing what is it that people really need and do something about it. And I think this also translates into credible policymaking in the end.
Definitely. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Lam. So my last question to you today is going to be, so basically, what advice would you like to give to young females who are aspiring to make a place for themselves, not just in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, but generally in any professional setup, and also those who are aspiring to assume leadership roles like yourself?
Well, first of all, it is be sure of yourself, develop your talents, and then you can actually shine and also convince others of what you can do. But there's also one thing: you shouldn't wait to be discovered as a talent and say, okay, I've got good marks at school, so maybe someone should give me the money to start the business or give me the scholarship. First of all, it's your own responsibility to develop yourself. So train yourself, look for opportunities. I think nowadays with social media and on the internet, there are lots of things available. Check it out, talk to friends. It's very important to have a good working network. Try to find role models. And an important thing is also mentorship. It might be a formal or an informal mentor. Try to align with people who can guide you in certain ways, and also people where you might be able to raise questions. There will always be issues that don't go so well. Discuss it with them. Normally we learn more from the things that haven't gone so well than from our successes, unfortunately. But that's a human thing as well. So be honest also about that. And it doesn't matter if something goes wrong. I mean, we've all had better and worse days. And if you look at sports, maybe I shouldn't mention cricket right now. It's not a good spot right now in Pakistan. But if you look at a sports person, when you are trying to good at something, you will not win all the tournaments at once. So the first thing that you learn is actually to lose. And you still need to keep going. So you need to have a lot of passion, and you need to have perseverance, and you need to have the role models to look at. So I would say, never give up. The stamina is the one thing that actually decides the successful from the non-successful person. It's not always the one with the best degree, which is in the end the most successful person in a career, as in a business person. It's the person that keeps going, that can learn from difficulties and gets up again. It doesn't matter if you fall, but it doesn't matter if you don't get up again. So I think that's the huge challenge that you have, but I wish everybody that you have that stamina. Believe in yourself, and just keep going.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lam. That was very good advice indeed. I wish this fireside chat could have gone on, but unfortunately, in the interest of time, I'll have to end here. Thank you very much for being a part of our fireside chat here at the Expo 2023. And we hope to see you in future sessions as well. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, and good luck for the conference.